Michaelson, our big issue this week is immigration. The crisis at the southern border is expected to get worse in the next few months as COVID restrictions there could be lifted. If and when that happens, there are fears that tens of thousands could rush the border every day. Over the last year, no network TV reporter has covered the border more often or more aggressively than Bill Melugin of the Fox News Channel. This week, Bill's interview with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy at the border made headlines around the world. On a personal note, Bill's one of my best friends, but he's never been on this show before. Bill Melugin, welcome to The Issue Is for the very first time.
Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
All right, so many people talk about the border, right? But many of them have never visited there before. You're there almost every single day. What's it really like on the ground? What's really happening there?
It's just out of control. And, some of the things we see down there are just crazy. Hundreds of people at a time crossing a river. You'll just be driving down a road and you'll see human smuggling incidents all along the road. You'll see Texas troopers arresting people. This video you're looking at right now, this was Mexican authorities literally trying to tackle people, migrants, before they got into the Rio Grande. And just to give you some perspective on, how bad it is, back when President Obama was in office, his DHS Secretary Jay Johnson said 1,000 illegal crossings a day would be a crisis. We're at 7,000 a day right now. And when Title 42 drops, DHS is projecting upwards of 18,000 a day. So that's 18 times what Jay Johnson once said would be a crisis.
Well, and let's talk a little bit more about Title 42, because that is a phrase that a lot of people that follow this stuff know, but a lot of other people are like, what are you talking about? So in the most basic terms, this CDC rule, what is Title 42?
So Title 42 is a public health rule that allows the United States to immediately expel migrants back to Mexico. And that's that video you're looking at right now. I just shot that in Eagle Pass 2 weeks ago. That is Title 42 in action. So what happens is once migrants come across the border, once they get picked up by Border Patrol, instead of going into a Border Patrol processing center and going through all that, they're essentially just put on a bus or a van and they're driven right up to an international bridge or a port of entry, and they are expelled back into Mexico, immediate. And it's been used over 1.7 million times since the Trump administration. President Trump first started utilizing this, and President Biden administration, they've decided to keep it. It's basically the one Trump era border policy that they've decided to keep. And it's very controversial because he takes a lot of heat from progressive liberals about it.
Sort of, they're saying now, we're pulling all the other COVID rules, so we're going to pull this one too. The White House rolling out their plan for the end of Title 42 this week. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who want to show you some videos, spending multiple days on Capitol Hill, answering some tough questions on this. Democrats aren't all behind this idea. So here are the main aspects of what the Biden administration says is going to go in place. They say they want to surge resources to the border, speed up the ability to process migrants, and work with Central American countries so they can help stop some of this before it ever gets to us. The secretary was pretty confident on the Hill this week, but he had a very different tone in a private meeting with Border Patrol agents last year. You actually obtained audio of that. It's a little bit hard to hear, but try to listen in.
If our border is the first line of defense, we're going to lose, and this is unsustainable. We can't continue like this. Our people in the field can't continue, and our system isn't built for it.
So it's two completely different messages, one to the public and one in private. And weeks after Mayorkas made those comments that you just aired in that audio, 15,000 Haitians showed up under the bridge in Del Rio. Things have gotten significantly worse since he made those comments. Just last month in March, we saw over 220,000 illegal crossings. That's the most in DHS history. So what he said in that testimony really just does not match up with the reality on the ground.
Well, and speaking of public and private being different, let's talk for a moment about Kevin McCarthy, who is the House Minority Leader from Bakersfield. At first, he denied a New York Times report that said that he wanted to call then President Trump and ask him to resign after January 6th. So then the New York Times released the tape of him doing just that. Here's that tape.
It would be my recommendation you should resign. What he did is unacceptable. I've had it with this guy.
So Leader McCarthy visited the border this week and spoke with you about that. Here's some of that exchange.
Do you still stand by those comments?
Look, I never told the president to resign. It was a conversation that we had about scenarios going forward. But that's not really what critical happened 15 months ago. What's happening is what's happening on this border right now.
If you had said the New York Times reporting on it was, quote, false and wrong, then the tape came out. Did you lie?
No, because what was brought to me is said that I called the president to say that to resign. I never called the president to say resign.
So what'd you make of that? And what do you make of Kevin McCarthy's future?
He certainly tried to redirect the conversation a few times. He wanted to really only talk about the border when I asked him those questions, which, of course, all politicians do. They love to deflect. But, it took several questions to try to get an answer out of him about it. And to his credit, before we did that live interview, I told him, I said, I'd like to pull you aside for a quick live interview. And I'm not going to just ask you about the border. I want to ask you about this New York Times tape. And he said, okay, that's fine. And I said, anything's fair game. And he goes, anything's fair game. You got a job to do. But he's still very confident. He doesn't think this tape is going to have any impact on whether or not he would be elected as speaker if Republicans take the House in 2022. He doesn't think it's a big deal. And you've seen President Trump has come out in support of him. So he's looking to move past this. We were just glad to be able to get him on the record. I believe it was his first on-camera comment since that tape was leaked. So it was supposed to be a border trip, but there other news happened. So wanted to ask him about it face to face.
So it appears that he is going to be the front runner to be the speaker if the Republicans take over the House. Okay, we always do something fun on this show. You know that. I'm not going to ask you to dance because I've seen your dance moves in the club and nobody wants to see that. But I do want to ask you about dogs, which I know you love. And you're out at the border. You've had all these dogs come up to you, and you and your mom have fallen in love with some of them. Talk to us about what we're looking at here.
So that is Rio and Roma. So basically, in January, during one of my border trips to McAllen, this one mother stray dog we talked to named Free Socks is what I named her. She trusts us a lot. We feed her every day. So one day she brought over all her puppies and we started feeding them. And over a span of several weeks, I started sending pictures to my mom and brother of these little puppies. And they fell in love with them. They're just stray border pups. They are not healthy. One has a little cut on its head, as you can see. And eventually they decided, we can't just leave them out there. So they literally flew out from California. They flew into McAllen and they adopted both cute little girls, and both are now so big I can't hold them up in one hand anymore.
That's great. And one note before we go, Bill is now this big national star. Some folks may not know he used to work here with us. We are all so proud of all your hard work. You deserve the recognition, and we love you, brother.
Miss every single one of you. Great times.
All right, Bill Melugin, thank you so much. Up next here on The Issue Is.